Hey, this is Kyle, First Surgical. Sorry I can't be with you guys today. Staffing's been a little short on our unit, so I was not able to get off today to join us, but I did want to present my topic, which is Mobility Week. Okay, so what is Mobility Week and where does it come from? So it's an idea. We've been participating in a early mobilization committee that meets about every other week with a number of people in the hospital, and so some of these ideas have come from that, and so I just wanted to build off of this. It comes from an idea from Johns Hopkins Medicine Hospital, and it's actually coming up tomorrow. Today is the official first day, so they have a mobility-a-thon that runs from November 9th through the 11th. That is, I guess it's an annual event that this hospital puts on. They promote within kind of the mobility community and have a whole resource kit of tools that we can use. So they have like a toolkit with like whole how to roll out the campaign, from communications strategy to a timeline, to all kinds of stuff. And then additionally, they have additional resources as far as like signage and a whole bunch of stuff that kind of really makes it possible for a hospital to kind of grab this whole toolkit and implement something similar. I found out about this a few weeks ago, and so I think it's a little fast for us to meet their timeline, but I thought we could copy the idea and implement it kind of within our hospital on our own timeline. And so that's what I wanted to kind of present today. So I wanted to kind of give you kind of the background of where we're coming from and what we'd like to do. So for me, I had thought about doing a mobility week, right? And so what would a mobility week look like? For me, the goal of a mobility week would be to highlight mobility for each of one of our patients. The goal would be to get each patient up and have them reach their highest level of mobility for each shift, every shift for an entire week, right? So that would be 14, so 7 days, 14 shifts. Every patient gets up and reaches their highest level of mobility, whether it's up in a chair, whether it's walking laps, whether that's just self-turning in the bed, whatever their highest level of mobility is, helping them reach that as a goal, right? And so why would we do that? So some of the objectives, obviously, is to increase daily patient mobility, because that's something we want to highlight on. Hopefully, we would see decreased discharge times. We would decrease falls because patients are going to be better. They're going to be stronger from getting up and moving more often. Increase staff awareness of mobility and the importance of mobility. And then additionally, on the back end, after Mobility Week is over, to use that as a way to kind of gather feedback on mobility, right? So a way to just get data on the previous objectives that I listed, as far as, and then additionally, a quick survey to staff about what barriers do they run into that kind of decrease the motivation or make it more difficult to get patients up and moving. And then where do the staff identify successes and what things were successful in helping them to get up and move, okay? So kind of a working group to kind of get this thing off the ground and get it launched. As far as a timeline, I'm looking at early spring. I'm thinking of February or March kind of timeline to get this thing fully up and moving and going, okay? So people like Holly would need to be on board. We're going to have representation from the fit providers, therapy, so PT, OT should be involved, unit managers, we're going to want to buy in from that. I'm thinking of unit champions, so someone from a day shift, night shift from each unit to kind of really kind of champion this out on their units. Care management obviously getting involved for the incentive there. Tracy to help kind of coordinate supplies and other things, kind of behind the scenes. She'd be kind of more of a before the week event. Clinical educators to help educate people on appropriate, making sure that we're using best practices as far as patient mobility. And maybe we roll out some education. We highlight patient mobility during that week. And then dietary as well. Since we're going to hopefully be getting people up in chairs for meals and stuff, is there a way to kind of coordinate some of that stuff through dietary? I know we've been kind of talking about modifying dietary and kind of how they roll out. Maybe there should be a time to kind of talk about that. A lot of these people already kind of meet in early mobility, or at least invited to this meeting. All of you guys obviously are welcome to come as well. And so maybe we just take over that meeting for a while and utilize that for early mobility week, or maybe it's something else. I don't know, open for discussion. So that's just kind of the starting idea. So why mobility? So Holly and I think greater on a greater level, Common Spirit has really been trying to push early mobilization for our patients. And so early mobility, or mobility week, kind of ties in all of kind of the things that we've been working on within this smaller work group. So one of the things we're trying to do is get all the equipment organized in the units, right? So making sure there's enough gait belts, enough walkers, enough beds, like commodes, like all of that stuff. So this would kind of give us essentially a deadline to kind of get that stuff executed, okay? So that would be one thing. Next thing is it kind of gets prioritization of getting this stuff done and getting it onto the units from a manager level. And then it also gives Fit a deadline. So we've really been trying to get Fit to take their default activity level from bed rest to as tolerated. And so that really will give latitude to the therapies, to the nurses, to the CNAs to kind of get patients getting up and moving and not feel restricted to that bed rest order. And so that'll give Fit a deadline to get that done as well. And then finally, building out signage to roll out this week. I'm kind of envisioning kind of big banners and on each of the units, kind of like a for Nurses Week or for Daisy Award winners, like a big banner kind of highlighting Mobility Week. And then maybe we can create little flyers for each of the patients to kind of educate them on, these are the goals that you should be seeing from your care teams today, etc. Random other ideas that I've had, and unfortunately I'm not live, so I can't interact with you guys on this and hear your feedback, but I look forward to kind of doing this at a later date. But may need to have a budget for this project, so would that be appropriate? Where could we find a budget as far as for creating signage, securing equipment, etc.? Whatever kind of expenses, maybe there's some food or hospitality throughout the week as kind of celebratory stuff. We'll have to kind of look at that. Build out the communication strategy. So we can utilize the Johns Hopkins Toolkit as a resource as far as like, how do we communicate about Mobility Week? How do we get people on board? How do we communicate it to the bedside staff? How do we communicate it to the Fit providers? We're obviously going to want to communicate it in a lot of different ways. So we're talking emails, we're talking signage, we're talking shift report huddle announcements. Maybe we can do a pathways learning module of some kind through the unit educator. So a lot of different ways we can kind of highlight this before we get up to that point. And then additionally, just kind of bedside information with the patients as well. I kind of touched on that with the flyer. Creating signage is another thing that we're gonna have to think about. So is there a way that we can kind of tap into marketing or design, someone that can kind of, obviously we want to create this official, utilizing the Virginia Mason Franciscan Health logos and the new color schemes and making sure that the signage is look really professional, because I think if we do it right, we can roll these over and not date it, but make these kind of evergreen signs that we can use over and over and over. So we invest now and then we can reuse it for years in advance. And then, so we talked about ensuring mobility equipment is on there. And we talked about staff education. So again, maybe we can include some level of staff education, right? So we do our fair weeks and stuff like that, but maybe this is a special kind of one-off, just educating people on the fly. I don't know. There's some ideas about that. Carrie, I know that you and Ashley have been working on the signage for the lifts and stuff, and so I apologize if you guys have already covered that, but that would be a great time to kind of highlight that information and kind of how to utilize all the equipment so that we don't only emphasize moving the patients, but we make sure we move the patients safely, right? So that would be of all of that. And then additional resource and kind of where a lot of these thoughts come from for me is I finished the book Lean Hospitals by Mark Graban. And so he kind of talks about lean transformation as kind of a form, as kind of implementing a way to kind of do hospital-wide change. And so that kind of, and then obviously it aligns with kind of the Virginia Mason production system that we're kind of following under. And they said that we're going to utilize to kind of implement ideas and change. And so trying to, again, align kind of hospital projects with kind of more system-wide focuses. I think this really has an opportunity to do that. So thank you.